system has removed that for us. Praise God that we have a system that we can actually look at those things and get them done. So I'm going to call on Andrea to read a statement from Mirom. Okay, and after that, we will have another person who will read another statement that will give the legal synopsis of the legal judgment that was handed down this morning. I am sorry you do not have a lawyer here with us because the lawyer could make it, but we're having a press conference anyway, we're moving along. Andrea.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Dominicans.
Before you go, Andrea, what? Give us your
So sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea, and I'm just assisting Mr. Darrell today in
Andrea, what?
Bruno. I'm assisting Darrell here today in bringing forth this huge victory for Dominica. So, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Dominicans, today we gather to mark a significant milestone in the journey towards equality, dignity, and freedom in our beloved nation of Dominica. After years of relentless advocacy, dialogue, and legal battles, Mirom celebrates a monumental victory for the LGBTQ+ community and for all who cherish human rights. This morning, Justice Kimberly Sinak Fulange, I'm so sorry if I pronounced that wrong, of the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court found sections of the Sexual Offences Act of Dominica to be unconstitutional. I'm so sorry. Mirom first filed a case to the Dominica High Court on the 19th of July 2019, challenging the constitutionality of Section 14 and 16 of the Sexual Offences Act. These laws, which criminalize same-sex activity, represented a blatant violation of citizens' rights to love who they love. The court's judgment today, following a hearing on the 27th of September of 2022, has unequivocally sided with justice. We have emerged successful. The government of Dominica, in its submission, acknowledged that these laws contravened Section 1 and 10 of the Dominican Constitution and recommended they be made void. This legal acknowledgement is a testament to over 14 years of Mirom's advocacy, ensuring that members of the LGBTQ+ community are no longer marginalized or criminalized for their sexual preferences. Our path to this welcome judgment has been paved with consultations, negotiations, and discussions with the public, government officials, religious leaders, regional and international bodies, including the United Nations and foreign embassies. It is through these efforts, supported by countless individuals, that we have achieved this groundbreaking result. However, let us not view this victory as the culmination of our efforts. Rather, it is a significant milestone on the continuing path towards full equality and acceptance. The court has fulfilled its role, dismantling the legal framework and underpinned hate and discrimination. The era where bullying, taunting could be justified under the guise of the law is over. We hope that tragedies such as the murders of members of our community will never happen again. We remember Clement Johnson James, who was stabbed and killed on the Indian River Bridge. The murderer's reason for committing the crime was that he looked at him in a suggestive way. We remember Nurse Paho, who was killed at his home while his assailant was convicted and on appeal released on an argument of unnatural sexual advances. We remember the Dominican males who, because of their same-sex preferences, committed suicide because they could not handle the stresses of living in this society. Now, no one can claim that same-sex gender intimacy is against the law, rendering moot the argument that because the Bible says so. If one's religious belief is predicated on hate and disparagement, then it's time to seek a more compassionate path. The maximum, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, has never been more pertinent. This distinction between civil and religious law is fundamental. Civil law is designed to uphold human rights, ensure equality, and protect individuals and their possessions without bias. It does not confer privileges to some while denying others. In contrast, religious laws pertains to spiritual guidance and is the domain of religious institutions to interpret and enforce among their congregations. The LGBTQ community of Dominica, this victory is both a celebration and a call to action. It is imperative that we conduct ourselves with responsibility and grace, recognizing that the path towards true acceptance is long and winding. The culture of homophobia that has pervaded our society will not vanish overnight. The repeal of these laws does not instantly dissolve the deep-seated prejudices within our society. The responsibility also lies with the broader community of Dominica. It is incumbent upon all of us to extend support and respect to one another, fostering an environment where every individual can lead a fulfilling life free from fear and discrimination. The LGBTQ+ community, in turn, must embrace their identity with pride, rejecting any notions of inferiority. It is crucial to remember that this legal victory does not condone or excuse illegal behaviors such as pedophilia, rape, or gross indecent exposure, which remain punishable under the law. Our commitment to upholding dignity and consent remains unwavering. As we close this chapter, we extend our deepest gratitude to those who made this victory possible. The claimant to this case, who offered himself to be interviewed and was chosen as being the most qualified candidate to bring this case forward, Robert Carr, assisted by Ian Knight of Jamaican Aid Society, JAS, who in the early 2000s extended their programming to include developing the capacity of the LGBTQ+ community in the Eastern Caribbean and encouraged the formation of the group Caribbean HIV/AIDS Partnership, the CHAP, from which most of the LGBTQ+ organizations of the Eastern Caribbean were morphed. The JAS extension program developed to become the Caribbean Vulnerable Communities, that's the CVC, the Faculty of Law UWI Rights Advocacy Project, URAP, who gave a legal perspective of the anti-sodomy laws in the English-speaking Caribbean. Maurice Tomlinson, who lent the necessary support for this case to be mounted, and finding a sponsor for the legal support and fees from the HIV Legal Network of Canada. Without their support, we would not have been able to bring this case to the court. To our lawyer, Kara Shillingford, in whom we put our trust to run this case through the court system in Dominica, the LGBTQ+ community who supported this initiative, without whom this would have been meaningless. Finally, this win belongs to every Dominican who believes in justice and equality. As we move forward, let us commit to building a Dominica where every person, irrespective of their sexual orientation or gender identity, can live openly and proudly. Thank you.
Okay, and that was a statement prepared by mirom. And now we are going to have Lewin to come and just give us a statement on the proceedings of this morning, a synopsis of the judgment that was handed down, and then we'll open up for some questions.
So, hi everyone. My name is Lewin Hill, and I will be just giving a summary of the decision that were taken today. So, the first one is the right to liberty. So, the court accepts the position of both parties that Section 14 and 16 of the SOA, so the Sexual Offences Act, violate the right to liberty guaranteed by Section 1A of the Constitution. The court accepts also the AG's argument that Section 14 and 16 of the SOA do not infringe the right to liberty articulated by Section 3 of the Constitution, which appear to go further and specifically guarantees the right to liberty in a sense of freedom from bodily and physical restraint in the context of matter relating to the arrest or other limitation of movement. So the conclusion is that the section 14 and 16 of the SOA contravene section 1A of the Constitution, the right to liberty. Now on the right to freedom of expression, so both parties agreed that criminalizing sexual relation between consenting adults, as done by section 14 and 16 of the SOA, is an unjustifiable restriction of on the constitutionally guaranteed right to freedom of expression in a free and democratic society. And so section 14 and 16 of the SOA are void to the extent of this infringement. So the conclusion is that sections 14 and 15 of the SOA infringe the right to freedom of expression guaranteed by section 1A and 10.1 of the Constitution. Right to privacy, on the right to privacy of the home. The court accepts that the right to protection for privacy of the home encompasses private and family life and the personal sphere, which include one's sexual identity and orientation, as well as intimate activity with a partner of a personal choice. The court disagrees with the claimant that section 14 and 15 violate section 7 of the Constitution in relation to arbitrary entry. The conclusion are that sections 14 and 16 of the SOA contravene the Constitution insofar as they intrude on the private home life of an individual by prescribing the choice of consenting adult as to whom to engage with intimate sexual activity and are therefore void. So the conclusion are that section 14 and 16 of the SOA violate the right to liberty, freedom, and expression and privacy and home life. So now, are the violation of right endangered by the impugned provisions reasonably justified in a democratic society? So the state may legitimately limit the enjoyment of right to ensure that it doesn't impair the enjoyment of right and freedoms by others or injure the public interest. Public interest consideration include defense, public safety, public order, public morality, or public health. Limitation of right must also be rationally connected to the public interest objectives and proportional in scope and nature. So go no further than what is necessary to achieve the objective. The AG considered that section 14 and 16 breach the right to liberty, freedom of expression, and privacy, and that the provisions were not reasonably justifiable in a democratic society, as they do not pursue any of the legitimate public interest objectives.
Okay, and we will just stop here with this, because generally that kind of takes up a whole lot of the general legal discussions that we're having. All right, we give it to you in writing so that you'll be able to read all of the details of what happened. As again, I apologize that we do not have a legal head up here with us that will be able to explain exactly what happened and the legalities of all of this. But I'm willing to take any questions that you have dealing with the LGBT society. Okay? All right. Thank you, Louis. Okay. My dear, Curtis insists that I sit to talk to you. Yes, miss. If you can speak loud enough, I will answer your question. I promise you that. Yes, I am, you know. Ah. Hello, miss.
My first question is, what challenges do you anticipate in terms of implementing and enforcing this rule effectively? And how do you think this ruling might impact public attitudes towards LGBT individuals in Dominica? And can you list any further legal or social reforms that you believe are necessary to ensure full equality and freedom for LGBT people?
Wow, that's everything in 3 questions. All right. First of all, is that this is just the beginning of something that we have to deal with. Okay, let me just turn off my phone. I'm sorry about this. All right, this is just the beginning of a war. People are brought up, are born in this community, in this island of Dominica. They go to school, and people recognize who they are before they even know who they are. They're being bullied at school. They're being called names on the streets before they even have a first sexual encounter. All right? Some people do not know what it is. All they know is that they're being treated differently. And so it is a culture that is bred within us. We hear other people bully and taunt people because of the mannerisms, and as children, we do it to others without even giving it a second thought. We don't expect everything to change overnight. But with this ruling, no longer can somebody turn and say, okay, it's against the law, so I have a right to tell it to you, or I have a right to call you names because it is against the law. This just removes that fuel so that people won't have a justification. And now it will force people to think of their actions towards others. Whether we like it or not, homosexuality or same-sex attraction exists. And there's nothing we can do about it. Your grandfather will tell you stories, and if your great-grandfather is still here, he'll still tell you stories. And if you're old enough to have children and grandchildren, great-grandchildren, they will be able to tell you stories. The Bible even has stories too, but they don't talk about it. All right? So it is the beginning of a process. We have just started a process. And we need to continue the process. But the legal aspect is removed. Well, as I mentioned to you, it's a culture. A culture is cultivated. So it's not all up to us, the Dominican Society, the citizens of the world, to decide, well, you cannot continue treating people that way because they do something differently than you. And we have to try treating them a little more humanely. Hopefully within the schools, that a child wouldn't be taunted and bullied by his peers in school, and he goes to the council for the counselor to tell him that he has to change his ways. Because whether we like it or not, it does exist. Okay? Rather than deal with the situation, they treat the children as if they were some strange alien from somewhere, and you have to change your ways for you to fit in. So no longer can you tell people that. Okay? And what was the third question?
Yes. Are there any other rulings or social reforms you think are necessary in order to be right?
Oh, well, as we go along, we're going to realize that, well, I guess one of the Christian pastors told me the next step a few years ago when he mentioned about marriage equality. Well, if you're now free to love who you want to love, then you're free to make an association. And the whole thing about marriage, and marriage just being for one set of people, the heterosexuals, and same-sex attractions cannot get married, becomes a privilege that the homosexuals do not enjoy. So we need to equalize that as well. So we could see that in the future, but not immediately. Yeah.
Also, a follow-up question to that would be for the naysayers who may come back by saying that marriage is a covenant in the world.
Your religion is between you, your church, and your God. There's a difference between religious law and civic law. If you go to the church and the church says that, then it's a matter for you and your congregation and a pastor. All right? We all live under civil law, and we all have to deal with the civil laws that's supposed to make things equal for everybody. Understood? Thank you, miss.
Mr. Philip, this
Yes, sir.
ruling this morning, what would the government expect to do right now in terms of parliament?
In terms of parliament?
Yeah, what would the
Well,
government expect?
Section 14, which is the Sexual Offences Act, which is a broad act, there are certain aspects of it that have to be removed, especially the aspects that makes decriminalization, homosexuality a criminal act. But all the other things remain. But Section 16, which deals with burglary, is just void.
So you don't have to go to parliament to do anything.
I am not too sure of those procedures, but I do know that the court has sanctioned that it is void.
What would be your message to the government right now? What would you say to the government now following this ruling this morning?
Well, it is time for us to have some open and fair discussions about sexualities and encourage people to be fair to each other and to stop discriminating against people who we think are same-sex loving and try to accommodate them within our society. That's the most I can ask from them.
Okay, so I have two questions. What would you say to those who oppose the ruling, particularly the religious groups, and how do you envisage that this ruling bridges the gap between the different perspectives from the LGBT plus community? And also, what strategies do you suggest for fostering greater understanding and support for the LGBT plus rights among the general population in Dominica?
Another very loaded question. As I mentioned, it's a process. And we have to realize that there's a difference between church and state. All right? Civic laws are made for everybody, and that is what we all follow. The only reason why there are hundreds of different churches, because they all believe in different parts of the Bible. They all believe in different things. But if I join a church, I follow their rules. If I live in a society and the society has various rules, I have to follow those rules first. The rules of the state. Render to Caesar what is Caesar's. All right? So as to how people are going to deal with it, there are a few changes that we have to make in our lives in the world, you know. There was one time we had to deal with slavery and another time apartheid, and people changed. People grow to understand that things will evolve, and it has only made for a better and a more tolerable society. I don't think any of them has changed the society to the worst. So we can only hope for that best.
Can you ask a question as it relates to the issue of parliament? Because yes, the court would have declared certain sections of the Constitution void. But do you anticipate that government may appeal that ruling, because that is just the first step? Remember, that is just the first step. If you do that, you are facing.
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question, because when we went to the court with that case, it wasn't even argued. And as was mentioned earlier on, that it is agreed upon by both sections that Section 14 and 16 are in contravention to the sections 1 and 10 of the Constitution. And it's written right here in the submission on page 24 that it is declared that Section 14 of the Sexual Offences Act is contravenes Section 1 and 10 of the Constitution. And again, on another part, it says that it is declared that Section 16 of the Sexual Offences Act contravenes Section 1 and 10. So actually, the government and the claimant are both in agreement.
I know that they sort of consented, so but I just asked that question.
Mm-hmm.
But going forward, how soon would you expect government to go to parliament to make the necessary changes that the court would have deemed unconstitutional, null and void? How soon would you expect them? And
you mean go through the political processes?
Well,
this is a judicial matter, it's done.
No, but remember the laws are still on the books. That's not in there. Oh, no. The laws are still on the books, and for it, even if the court says something and it remains on the books, if something has to be done.
All right. Okay. You're going to an area that I care not to discuss a lot about because I am not a legal mind. But as far as I'm concerned as a citizen, is that the court has taken that decision and it's done.
No, but it doesn't end there. It has to go.
Then I will leave it to a legal mind to discuss that with you. I cannot. I'm not in the position to do that.
As the court ruled in void, that means they're not going to be removed from the books because it's no longer a law of the state. So it doesn't really have to go through much further process besides just getting it removed from our law books, as you put it.
So how is
As
it
it's already void.
No, so how is it going to work?
Anyway, Andrea, as I said, it's a legal discussion and we are not in a position to do that.
That's true.
Okay. But thank you very much. Thank you very much, Kala.
Question. If churches or religious organizations refuse to get involved in homosexual marriages, will there be any pending litigation?
No, nobody can force anybody to marry people. And there's no law. I mean, that hasn't been taken up yet. But if it is a law of the state that there can be same-sex marriages and a religious belief, a religious denomination does not want to do it, you can get married in court. Yeah. But there's no law about it. But once it is a matter that is on the law books, you go to the registrar and you have a civil marriage.
If it's on the law.
Yes, if it is on the law.
So you see why I asked that question as it poses to removal, because then Parliament would have to go to Parliament to remove that section that the court deems unconstitutional.
Kala, I'm not a legal mind. I can't take that up with you. Okay? I'm in no position to do that. Yes, miss. Could you give your name? Okay.
Also, a couple years ago, I involved PM said that same-sex marriages will never be accepted in his country. So, do you see that as something that would affect this law? Because it has been voided, yes, but it also has to go to Parliament and then to be implemented and removed from the book. So, do you see that as something that will challenge the decision already?
There is, our laws are guided by and maintained by the judiciary, which take the decisions, and that is why we have a high court. That is why we have those hearings. So once it has been determined by the court that something is not in sync with the population of Dominica, it is like a directive given to the government to get that done. Okay?
Mr. Philip, was it mirom or an individual who the matter of court? Was it mirom or just an individual?
Mirom, not being a person, cannot take the matter to court. So we had to get a person to do it.
Yes.
And so we got a claimant who was able to work along with mirom to bring the case forward with mirom. But there's a gag order that was put onto the person's name to protect the person's identity. And all up till this morning, speaking with the person still does not want his identity to be revealed because he still does not think that everything will be okay in Dominica and he wouldn't get a backlash next week because he reveals himself. Yes, miss.
I would like you to speak on the other rights that were not accepted by the courts, as you have the right to security of the person, protection from being made and equal treatment or punishment, right to protection from discrimination, and freedom of assembly and association.
Okay.
Because as you just said, even the person who was directly involved in this case, the defendant does not feel comfortable revealing his identity.
Well, my dear, that is where I take a stance on my limitations. I'm not a lawyer. I am not a legal mind, and I really cannot discuss that part of it because I can't. You will ask me follow-up questions, and I'll be speaking off the top of my head, and most probably I'll be saying things that are not right or true.
I'm not sure if you can clarify this. This ruling today, does it automatically begin from today?
Yes.
It's on ruling. Those you can begin to celebrate today.
Yeah. I intend to celebrate from today. Okay. Yes.
There's some concerns from parents. So, how do you address how do you address concerns from parents who may be apprehensive about the LGBT plus education in schools and what is being heard and seen in society? So, how do you address those concerns?
I am not too sure where you're going with this question. But people learn about sexualities as they grow up. And if you could give them proper guidance, it would be easier for them. As towards being afraid because people get some information about something, having information about same-sex intimacy does not make you be same-sex attracted. You're born that way. And a lot of us have experimented in our lives, but that doesn't make us homosexuals or sodomites in any way. Okay? So people will experience different things. And as far as I know, education encourages people to have experiences and to know, have a broad education about different things. So let's not try to shield people from an education. Let's try to give them facts and figures, and let's treat them as people, and let them make up their minds what is it that they want. Okay.
So, how do you see this judgment to be encouraging other Caribbean islands move forward and do the same as Miram? You see that happening?
But of course, I mean, Belize was the first to do it, followed by Trinidad, followed by Antigua, followed by St. Kitts. St. Vincent.
St. Vincent was against.
St. Vincent lost the case. But did you read the judgment? Oh, that is kind of sad. But compared to the judgment that we got today, where they dealt with law and legal matters, I don't think you could exactly put the judgment of St. Vincent on that line. And that is why I agree with the appeal. They are appealing the case, and they have a right to appeal the case. But it will happen. Okay? And the Caribbean, the Eastern Caribbean and Caribbean will become a more human rights friendly place in the world. And you know, when you tell me that, I remember one time going to some place, I think it was Guatemala, to some meeting. And it was an OECS meeting. And then as we're coming from the Caribbean, we have all of those wonderful laws that prevents people from same-sex intimacy. And when we mentioned that in the meeting, the people couldn't understand what we were talking about. How can you have a law that prevents that? And they're just on the other side. But the thing is that they never had those laws. We did because of British tradition. And then they removed theirs and they left us with ours. All right? And the churches continue with it. Why is it they continue with it? I do not know. But as far as I'm concerned, adultery and fornication are worse laws than this. Because there's nothing that will mash up the society more than that.
I covered that it's the US.
Yes.
Recommended.
Well, I did. You are young, vibrant.
Yes.
Yeah, and we had to send someone else, because I took a young person, so I recommended you.
Yes, so I was part of the whole US team.
Was part of that organization?
No, not part of his organization. He recommended me. No.
Carla, you answered that question already. Let's move on.
So, the US seems to be, at an advanced stage, still parts of the Caribbean. Now you are, quote unquote, fighting a battle in Dominica. How are you going to see that becoming a true reality of what you want.
But it is a true reality as of today. The laws have been repealed. You understand what that means? It means that in a few years' time, I mean, in the next 4 days, it's going to be a 4-day wonder. Everybody will be jumping up and down the place after they're settled down, and it will be just another law that we have that has been removed.
So, Philip, a little about mirom. Mirom is a how many members?
mirom is an interesting group. We have very few members, but lots of allies. And one of the reasons is because people are afraid to come forward. It's difficult to get people to come together to discuss that sort of thing, for the public to get to know without having some social reprisal to it. All right? But mirom is not lonely at all. We have lots of support. Lots of support.
All around Dominica.
All around, everywhere.
But Kala is just telling you are very powerful.
What's that?
Kala is just telling you are very powerful.
We're not, I don't think we are powerful. We have just decided to find out about the rights that we have, and we invested our time and our knowledge to doing it. So it's an advocacy that came from nothing. But we had to build for us to represent something that people can be free of. All right? So it's not that it's a special talent that we have. It's not a special talent.
What is your next move? Your next move? Big meeting, next activity?
You mean a big public meeting in Lago?
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't see that. You wouldn't see that. It's not that kind of group. It is not that kind of group. We'll quietly work and represent people and fight for people's rights, make statements where it is necessary. And that's how we got to know about mirom. Through the articles that we wrote in the papers, through the comments that we made on the radio. I mean, mirom is no big thing, but it's just that when we made a statement, we made sure that the statement was sound, that it was above other people's reproach. Okay? And that is how we go about the advocacy. And we try not to rub people the wrong way, and we try to be fair with everybody, and we try to put ourselves in a position where we could discuss issues with people.
I'm very sure you're going to be hearing from the religious organizations in Dominica. I think of the Dominica Evangelical Association, Pastor Rabbi Rodney, and people who have been advocating against this movement. What would you expect?
Religious law is religious law. They are there to represent themselves, and they represent the church. mirom is set up to represent civil law. And if it is there's an inequality, we represent it. So we represent two different things. But it's just that some of us, some think that they're more superior than others. So they think that because they believe that everybody have to. And the world is not made up that way. I cannot take away their religious belief from them. I'm not going to do that. But I will say that with the religious people, there are certain social morals that they teach that we need to follow in order for us to live in a more peaceful and understanding society. So I cannot take their role away from them. But there are some things that have to change.
Final question now. Just clarify something now. Same people, sexual activity, and the public. Just clarify that for us. How do you?
But Curtis, if you go away, you take the plane, you go to Guadeloupe and Martinique, by the time you halfway the channel, you get accustomed with it. You see it all the time in front of you, you come to Dominic and suddenly something is wrong with it.
No, I'm talking about sexual activity.
Uh-huh. No. Hold on a while. There is this thing of public indecency, indecent public exposure, that is still the laws of the land. Rape is still the laws of the land. Pedophilia is still the laws of the land, and mirom will follow that. Okay? But it's not that because you live the law that you're going to walk down the road and see two men making out in front of certain place hotel. No, that would not happen.
So we will not see two men good hands in love.
But what's wrong in that now? What is the problem? Are they having sex on the side of the road? All right, thank you. Anyway, y'all, thank you very much for coming. I hope I've answered all of your questions, and you now have some things meaty to report about. I appreciate you coming. Thank you very much. Okay.
This has been a press conference by mirom as they made their statement on the judgment of BG and the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Dominica in regards to various laws. On behalf of Emonews, thanks for joining us this evening.